Welcome to the 2019 Annual Safety Meeting. In this lesson, we'll talk about distracted driving. The National Transportation Safety Board lists the most common distractions in a vehicle as mobile devices, your cell phones, passengers, especially in our case as school bus drivers, your radio, and that includes your radio to base, and your AM/FM radio or CD player. Conversation, talking to your passengers, or if you have an aide on board or parents during a field trip. Daydreaming, just zoning out. Family work issues. When you show up to the bus, your focus is not actually driving the bus, but worrying about something maybe at home or at work. And then eating or drinking, trying to handle a soda or a sandwich and still trying to maintain vision and drive the school bus itself. Now I'm going to show you a video from ABC News that talks about distracted drivers.
Tonight, when bus drivers tempt fate, taking their eyes off the road to text or make a call, those few seconds can lead to disaster. And now it's the passengers who are on alert, armed with those same electronic devices, catching some of these drivers in the act. Here's ABC's Philip Mena.
Every day, millions of riders put their lives in the hands of bus drivers. But it's what passengers are spotting in the hands of some drivers that has them taking action. This video was shot by a passenger on a Pittsburgh city bus.
The bus driver was on his phone, listening to music, and then he was texting, wasn't paying attention at all to the road.
The Port Authority there now investigating that driver.
So many riders with their cell phones already in hand, making it easier to report bus drivers if they reach for theirs.
A local station reporting on this Greyhound bus driver caught texting by a passenger. Greyhound saying, "We take incidents such as that very seriously, and we handle them in a manner we feel is appropriate." Another driver in Maryland using his iPad while taking families to an amusement park. Venus Cotta says her daughter filmed her bus driver on the phone while driving a busload of students. That driver was suspended.
And when she showed me the video, I just couldn't believe it.
Mere seconds of distraction can turn deadly. These two little girls and a teacher's aide were killed when their bus slammed into another last December. Police in Tennessee now saying that driver was texting before the crash. As for that city passenger back in Pittsburgh,
I hate seeing anybody get in trouble, but then again, I hate to wake up tomorrow and see, somebody get injured or hurt, and I could have said something.
No regrets reaching for that phone and reporting that driver. Philip Mena, ABC News, New York.
Now, school bus driver. Indiana Code 20-27-2-9, school bus driver. School bus driver means an individual charged with the responsibility of operating a school bus. So when you think about the cargo that we carry, and we actually have people's most precious possessions on board our buses, that demands our full attention. Something to keep in mind, and a lot of times we don't think about this, but we actually work in an occupation that parents give us their children, but they don't know us. That's a lot of faith and a lot of trust in us as school bus drivers. Now, in this next video, it's going to show you about a distracted driver not paying attention and just driving a bus.
Good evening. A 7-year-old boy is undergoing a difficult recovery tonight after being hit by a school bus.
The entire incident caught on security camera that police are now investigating.
A warning: the video could be disturbing for some viewers to see. CTV's Brianna Karsten Smith has our top story.
Everything seems normal as a school bus comes to a stop in this quiet Abbotsford neighborhood. But what happens next is hard to watch. Two young children get off the bus. One girl runs towards her home, and her brother goes to follow. The swinging barrier is brought in, and the bus begins to move again, right into the child.
I can't watch it. It's intense to watch it for me.
Rupinder Gill is the little boy's aunt. She says 7-year-old Gurtaj is currently in the ICU at BC Children's, and he is expected to be for several weeks, undergoing multiple surgeries.
He has his pelvic broken. It's a really bad injury, and he had some major stomach bleeding and stuff.
Neighbors tell us the bus continued to drive down this road past at least another 3 or 4 houses. The entire time there were still other students on board, including the victim's cousin. The entire family now traumatized.
the kids are doing therapies and stuff. We are trying to make them more stable.
In a statement to CTV News, the Satnam Education Society, which runs the school, says its priority is the well-being of students. It goes on to say an investigation was done and safety protocols were reinforced with bus drivers. The driver of this one was first suspended and has since been fired. The family now questioning whether even more should be done.
When the parents send their kids to school, they give the life of the kid in their hands, right?
Police are investigating, but for now, Gil is focusing on praying that her sporty nephew can soon return to being a normal little boy.
We need more prayers, and I hope it will be fun.
So when you look at that video, as unfortunate as it was that 7-year-old was hit, and fortunately the child wasn't killed, but when you look at that, you have to ask yourself, was the bus driver distracted? Were they not paying attention? Were they not counting the kids that were crossing the road? So this is why it's imperative that we make sure that we are paying attention to our children when they're entering and leaving the bus, and we're keeping an accurate count when those kids are leaving as well. Yellow card revocation. Indiana Code 20-27-8-18 defines yellow card revocation as the driver of a school bus for a public or non-public school that is accredited by the state board shall have in the school bus driver's possession while transporting passengers a certificate that states the school bus driver has enrolled in or completed a course in school bus driver safety education as required under Section 9 and 10 of this chapter. Operated a school bus at least 30 days during the 3-year period preceding the effective date of the school bus driver's employment. A certificate of enrollment in or completion of the course or courses in school bus driver safety education shall be prescribed by the committee and completed by the designated representative of the committee. A driver of a school bus who fails to complete the school bus driver safety education course or courses as required shall be reported by the persons who conducted the course to the committee and to the school corporation where the school bus driver is employed or under contract. A driver of a school bus who fails to complete the school bus driver safety education course or courses as required may not drive a school bus within Indiana while transporting a student. The department may at any time order the revocation of a driver's certificate of completion of the school bus driver safety education training due to fraudulent completion of the annual safety meeting or workshop required under Section 9 of this chapter, or circumstances endangering the safe transportation of students, including the following: permanent revocation for a conviction for a felony or for a Class A misdemeanor that endangers the safety or safe transportation of a student, or a positive drug or alcohol test result that does not fall under the return to duty policy of the employing school corporation. A 2-year revocation for a conviction for a Class B misdemeanor that endangers the safety or safe transportation of a student. A 1-year revocation for a conviction for a Class C misdemeanor or judgment for a Class A infraction that endangers the safety or safe transportation of a student. A 6-month revocation for a judgment for a Class B or Class C infraction that endangers the safety or safe transportation of a student. So when you look at the yellow card revocation law, and that your blue card can also be revoked as well, when you look at this law, it's really designed to get drivers off the road that really don't practice safe habits. Now, use of a telecommunications device. And this is probably one of the biggest issues we have with regards to reports from parents or students as far as a bus driver breaking this particular law. So Indiana Code -9-21-859, use of a telecommunication device while operating a moving motor vehicle. A person may not use a telecommunications device to transmit a text message or an electronic mail message, or read a text message or an electronic mail message while operating a moving motor vehicle unless the device is used in conjunction with hands-free or voice-operated technology, or unless the device is used to call 911 to report a bona fide emergency. A police officer may not confiscate a telecommunications device for the purpose of determining compliance with this section or confiscate a telecommunications device and retain it as evidence pending trial for a violation of this section. So when you think about it from a school bus driver's perspective, you cannot text, receive a message while operating a moving motor vehicle. And even though in the law it does state that you could use a hands-free device, you guys need to make sure that your school district policy says there's nothing you can use with regards to that phone. That's super important, because if you did have a hands-free device like an earpiece in your ear and you had an accident, first thing that they're going to zero in on is you were distracted because maybe you were on the phone or something like that. And one thing we forget about in our transportation industry is when you think you pick up your phone to look at the time or look at a message that is not hurting anybody, we forget typically you got about 50 kids behind you that got cell phones too, and now they taking a picture of you on your cell phone and sending that to their parents or to the school. So the best rule of thumb is don't use your phones at all on board that bus. If you have an emergency in your family or you're expecting your first grandchild or something like that, my recommendation, have your family call base, call transportation. They can radio you, and then you can pull over or whatever you have to do. But definitely know your school district policy as well as the state law. Now, what is a telecommunications device? A telecommunications device is a wireless phone, a personal digital assistant, a pager, a text messaging device. The terms not include amateur radio equipped operated by amateur radio licensed by the FCC and a communication system in a commercial motor vehicle weighing more than 10,000 pounds. So I'm going to show you a video where 3 people lost their lives, 2 kids and an adult aide, when a school bus driver decided that he wanted to text someone to set up a date that evening.
A horrific scene unfolding late today, a deadly collision, 2 school buses crashing in Tennessee. These pictures coming in right now, one school bus knocked over onto its side, first responders right there at the scene. Authorities now reporting at least 3 people dead, and ABC's Matt Gutman tonight on the children being treated for injuries.
The front of one school bus was sheared off. The other bus was splayed on its side, cratered by the impact. The violence of the impact ripping off the roof.
We have some injuries and some fatalities, unfortunately.
Police in Knoxville, Tennessee tonight choking up.
We just asked the community to pray for.
As they announced 2 children were among the dead. Those children between kindergarten and the 3rd grade, the 3rd fatality, an adult aide on the bus. Family members frantically clustering at the scene shortly after the crash.
He was petrified. He's never been in an accident before.
Some 20 children in all were treated, mostly for bumps and bruises, say hospital officials. The 2 elementary school buses collided just before 3 p.m. today after school. The community tonight reeling.
It hurts, and it feels like we've lost members of our Knox County Schools family, and indeed we have.
Police tonight say they're investigating what caused this crash. Matt Gutman, ABC News, Miami.
All right, so in that video from Knoxville, Tennessee, really unfortunate that 2 kids were killed and an adult was killed for something that could have completely waited. That school bus driver was driving the school bus. Traffic was stopped ahead of him. He lost control of his vehicle because he was looking down, texting, trying to set up this date. And when he looked up, the only way he could go was to cross the median. And unfortunately, he T-boned that other bus. Now, in this video that you're going to watch, this is a prime example of what we talked about in the texting law, where a school bus driver is driving the bus while texting, but a student is captured it on their phone.
10. We begin tonight with alarming video of distracted driving. A school bus driver for Student Transportation of America repeatedly looking at and using his cell phone while driving a bus full of middle schoolers. Good evening, I'm Craig DeGrelli.
And I'm Jennifer Griswold. A student recorded the driver touching the screen, then shared it on social media. OPS tells us the driver is fired from that job. Tonight, reporter Maya Stein spoke with the student's mom, who says this was a pattern. Maya.
Yeah, Jen and Craig, the student and her mom tell me they've had complaints about this driver throughout the year. It wasn't until yesterday when the student says the driver almost ran over a pedestrian while making a turn that she pulled out her phone to record it.
It wasn't just, a quick glance and put it down or anything. No, you could actually see where he was holding the cell phone and turning the steering wheel of the bus.
Maureen Roberts was furious after seeing the cell phone video that her 8th grade daughter shot yesterday of her school bus driver texting while driving a bus full of Norris Middle School students.
You're jeopardizing your job, plus, your CDL and everything over a phone.
Roberts says she's had complaints about that particular bus driver since the beginning of the school year and mentioned it to Student Transportation of America, OPS's contracted bus company, and administrators at Norris Middle School. She says she even confronted the driver at the beginning of the school year, but says he ignored her.
He was driving and letting the students off in the middle of the block, and then it progressively, then he started texting a few times, and nothing was getting done. So I told Miranda, next time, catch him on video and put it on Facebook.
So she did. A video of the driver texting and driving for nearly a minute, which caught the attention of thousands on social media, including OPS and STA. Today, STA terminated the bus driver for violating its cell phone policy.
I feel better knowing that the safety of our children, knowing that someone else isn't going to have this happen to them.
Now, OPS said they notified parents of this incident tonight. Now, STA says it will make sure that the driver will not drive for OPS or their company again. Meanwhile, Maureen Roberts wants STA to start looking at bus drivers' bus cameras on a more regular basis to discipline drivers who are breaking any company policies and putting students in danger. Reporting live from the studio, Maya Stein, 3 News Now.
All right, discipline on board your buses. Indiana Code 20-27-10-2, discipline on school bus. When students are being transported on a school bus, the students are under the supervision, direction, and control of the school bus driver and are subject to disciplinary measures by the school bus driver and the governing body of the school corporation. This is probably going to be one of your biggest distractions on board your bus is discipline. When you have kids unruly on the bus, your focus, not only with driving, becomes trying to get those kids under control. And there have been accidents where bus drivers have, hit other vehicles, ran off the road because they were focused on dealing with children. So we have to make sure, as hard as it is sometimes, that we always have discipline on board that bus. And I'm going to show you a video where a principal recognizes that a bus has issues and how much it is distracting the school bus driver.
In Harrisburg, an ongoing problem with students misbehaving on the bus. It's to the point where safety is at risk and school leaders are doing something about it. News 8's Harrisburg reporter Portia Johnson has the story.
Let's go on your buses.
When the school day ends, the real challenge for Roland's new principal, Roma Benjamin, begins. It's getting more than 130 students to board the bus.
Be quiet! Young lady!
But when they are finally on the bus, the driver takes responsibility of getting them home safely. However, Benjamin says on bus 3, which transports mainly 7th and 8th graders, students are distracting the bus driver so much that safety is at risk.
Kids hanging out the windows, spitting on people's cars, throwing things, and how do you get up and run in the bus?
She says just last week it got so bad the bus driver could not take the students home. Instead, the driver brought them back to Roland and the principal stepped in. However, she says 50 students chose to get off the bus and walk home.
The kids we're dealing with now are very disrespectful kids.
Benjamin says she will be looking into getting cameras put on all the buses. In the meantime, she's reaching out to parents.
Kind of perturbs me, that when we're reaching out to help and to get help and suggestions, nothing happens.
Her response comes after Thursday's morning meeting where only a few parents showed up to talk about how to fix the problem. She says her best recourse right now is to continue holding students accountable.
If students are continuously disrupting the ride to or from school, they will be suspended temporarily.
And if that doesn't work, she says they will not ride the bus again. In Harrisburg, Portia Johnson, News 8.
Now, the New Jersey school bus crash, this happened in May of 2018. This school bus driver was driving his school bus and he missed his turn. So he came down the exit, tries to cut across 3 lanes of traffic to make a U-turn on the New Jersey Turnpike and was hit by a dump truck. Unfortunately, a teacher and a student was killed in this accident. So we're going to watch this video, and I just want you to pay attention that this was something that was completely avoidable had this bus driver just did what he was supposed to do and went to the very next exit and just looped around and came back down the other side.
There are troubling new details tonight about the driver in a deadly school bus crash in New Jersey last week. Chris Van Cleve has this information. Chris?
Jeff, the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission tells CBS News the driver has held a license since 1975 and has had 14 license suspensions. Now, 13 of those were for administrative issues not tied to moving violations, the most recent over an unpaid parking ticket. He's also received 8 speeding tickets, a careless driving ticket, a ticket for an improper turn in 2010, and in 2013, when he was licensed to drive a school bus, he was cited for not wearing a seatbelt. A 10-year-old student and a teacher were killed last week when the school bus he was driving collided with a dump truck. Last year, we investigated the stunning lack of oversight of school bus drivers, which can potentially lead to dangerous drivers or drivers with disqualifying medical conditions being behind the wheel. CBS News also found on average at least once a week a school bus driver is arrested for driving under the influence, child pornography, or even sexually assaulting a child. And just today, the National Transportation Safety Board issued a host of recommendations stemming from 2 deadly school bus crashes in 2016. Jeff?
14 license suspensions, and he was driving a bus full of 5th graders. Chris, thanks. Hard to believe.
Now you're going to watch the actual highway camera from the New Jersey school bus crash, and it's going to point out the dump truck and the school bus and where they meet up at. Now, radio communications to base. We know that our radios on board the bus can be a distraction, especially if you play it too loud or whatever the case may be. But what about your radio communication to base? I know there are times where I've been on buses where the radio to base was actually worse than the radio, AM/FM radio, because there was so much conversation going on board that bus. So we as school bus professionals need to make sure that we're keeping our communication to a minimum and that the only thing we're talking about on board the onboard communication system is things related to students. There have been situations where bus drivers have been talking about what they're going to do that weekend, you know, all that kind of stuff. That is not necessary over your radio. So make sure that anytime you're communicating on that radio is for the task at hand, and leave the other conversation till you get off the bus and talk to your fellow coworkers. In this video, you're going to watch where a parent asked the question, well, we know bus drivers can't text and drive or use their phones, but isn't the radio communications the base just as bad?
Bus drivers, they have an important job getting your kids to and from school, but is a handheld device distracting them? It's the subject of this week's Good Question Report with Pat Taney.
School bus drivers are not allowed to use cell phones, but they can use something else while driving: two-way radios. Sandra, who lives in Greece and used to be a bus monitor, asks, aren't they just as distracting as cell phones? Sandra listens to the scanners all day. She says she hears bus drivers using those radios a lot during their trips to and from school, so we listened in too. From the first pickup
ETA to 445 Westmont
to the last drop-off, school bus drivers are chatting
the house was dark
it up.
my matron just went down in the snow. I got to secure my bus to get off.
We monitored two-way radio conversations for several local school districts. First and foremost, to be clear, it's not illegal for the bus driver to do that anyways. They're allowed to use the two-ways.
Correct. They're allowed to use the two-ways. Just like any other motorist, they cannot use their cell phone.
So what's the difference? Kathleen Callan, Transportation Director for East Irondequoit Schools.
Cell phone is used for casual conversation. It's generally visual. You're looking to see who called. You're looking to dial a number. Base to 110.
For two-way radios?
The mics are mounted at a particular place. They're programmed directly to dispatch, so all they have to do is grab that mic without even looking, click the button, and they're immediately talking to dispatch.
Our viewer wanted to know if the two-ways are used for casual conversation, perhaps a distraction. Our investigation didn't find that. The talk, business only. And according to Callan,
It's really a piece of safety equipment. It's not casual conversation.
But they are used while the bus is in motion.
Very rarely. Yesterday afternoon, I had a driver on 490 that called in because she believed there was a drunk driver in front of her. Yes, she was driving down the expressway to make that call. Again, safety sensitive.
It's a two-way connection. Bus drivers depend on daily to keep you and your kids safe. Those bus drivers, we are told, go through extensive training on when to use the two-ways and when not to. Again, casual conversation supposed to be off limits. And it's not just schools. Businesses can use two-way radios as well. Consider them on truck drivers. You see them on the roadways often. I did some digging and found out anyone using two-way radios really, or even ham radios, can do so legally while behind the wheel here in New York State.
Okay, post-trip. So when you look at post-trip, we often average about 10 to 15 students left on Indiana school buses every year. And that's really, really unfortunate, especially when you look at it from the student's perspective, that the bus is parked at transportation or, at the school. And here's this kid sitting on board the bus, not knowing what to do or whatever the case may be. So post-trip is super important to make sure that we do it every day, make sure we walk on our bus and we're not distracted by using our phones while we're doing our post-trip, but actually looking under the seats, looking around the bus to verify we have left no students. Indiana Code -9-21-12-19, School Bus Special Purpose Bus Post-Trip Inspection. A person who operates a school bus or special purpose bus shall visually inspect each seat within the interior of the bus at the end of a trip during which student or passengers are transported to determine that no student or passenger has remained on the school bus or special purpose bus. The visual inspection required under subsection A must be conducted at the conclusion of each trip during which student or passengers are transported and before the operator exits the school bus or special purpose bus. A student or passenger is considered to have been left on a school bus or special purpose bus if the operator has reached the end of a trip during which student or passengers are transported and exited the school bus or special purpose bus, and the student or passenger remains inside the school bus or special purpose bus. A bus or special purpose bus owner shall report all instances of a student or passenger being left on this bus to the superintendent or designee immediately after the incident occurred, and the superintendent shall report all instances in no less than 5 working days to the Department of Education. Also keep in mind with post-trip, leaving a kid on board the school bus can open up a DCS case against the driver, because while that kid was left on the bus, did something happen to him? Did they get hurt? Things like that. So we want to make sure we're always checking our buses. And I'm going to show you a video where an autistic child, nonverbal, is left on a school bus.
10, a TMJ4 exclusive. A disabled student left stranded on a school bus for hours. The bus driver apparently forgot about the 9-year-old boy who is in a wheelchair.
Cody Holyoke spoke with the boy's parents tonight, and he joins us live from Plymouth with this exclusive report. Cody.
Mike and Courtney, good evening. I can tell you 9-year-old Jimmy Jarrock is wheelchair bound, spends most of his time in that wheelchair. His parents saw him off this morning, helping him onto the school bus. So you can imagine their horror when they got the call that their boy never made it to school.
Panic. oh my God, where's Jimmy? We got to find him.
Sheer terror filled the hearts of Don and James Girock.
He can't talk, walk, crawl, he can't defend himself.
Their 9-year-old son, Jimmy, relies on others for help, including a driver and aide assigned to his school bus. Instead of bringing him to class, they left him, scared and alone, for 3 hours in the bus yard.
It's just hard to, just pull it in and absorb, that they actually forgot about our son.
Jimmy was one of only 2 kids riding the bus, a blatant oversight that leaves the Girocks baffled.
The question is why?
Yep.
What was going on that was so important they had to get off the bus so quick?
How did this happen? That's part of the investigation.
Plymouth Superintendent Clark Reinke has questions himself.
We have to get to the bottom of it, and then we have to make sure that we put procedures in place that this never happens again.
Johnson School Bus Service, the company that runs the route, is reportedly investigating what happened. So is the school district. The superintendent assures me actions being taken against the driver and the aide.
They're suspended pending this investigation. Is that enough?
No, it's not.
Why?
Because what if it happened again?
Now, Jimmy is fine now. The same could not really be said for mom and dad, who want the workers fired. Come Monday, Dawn will be riding the bus with her son while her husband drives the family car behind the bus. These parents do not want to take any more chances. On your side, live in Plymouth, Cody Holyoke, today's TMJ4.
Oh, scary 3 hours for that little boy.
This concludes our 2019 annual safety meeting on distracted driving. As always, if you have any questions, you can contact us here at the Indiana Department of Education, Office of School Transportation. And as always, be safe and continue the great job that you always do. Thank you.